The Canucks may not have played for a while, but when they were back on the ice, they were back to winning. This is Instant Analysis presented by Tylenol Rapid Release Gel Caps, Rapid Release for Rapid Release. If we're going to talk Canucks, we got to bring in Iain MacIntyre. Iain, look, we know the 6-0 start under Bruce Boudreau was there, but then there was a pretty big gap, and everyone's like, what Vancouver team will come out against the Ducks? They looked pretty good. Yes, it was a tight game, but they looked good in that game as well. Look, Iain, is it as simple as Bruce Boudreau has fixed this team?
I think Boudreau obviously gets a lot of the credit, and that was the catalyst because more than anything, it just changed the air, right? It changed the vibe around the team. It removed what had been a pretty dark and oppressive cloud of negativity that the team itself had generated by having an awful first quarter. I think we all knew that they were underperforming, so that there would probably be a lift when they made a change like they did. But Bruce Boudreau does seem like an ideal guy to bring in. He's so upbeat and positive, and he wants to play an aggressive style, which every player wants to hear, go forward. Every player loves to play that way. But honestly, the players have kind of turned this around. We always look for simple answers to complex problems. But really, the special teams is probably the single biggest thing. The Canucks went from just being awful on special teams collectively. Their penalty killing at 64% was the worst through the first quarter of a season since the NHL started tracking that statistic. Well, the penalty killing's been 87% since Bruce Boudreau took over. The power play is near 30%, so it's going as well as they have all season. And Thatcher Demko, the goalie, is playing like a Vezina Trophy goalie. So when you combine that, special teams and goaltending, you may have heard of that before as being a secret to success.
You're going to be pretty good.
It's working for them right now. But there is a lot of credit, I think, that goes to Boudreau just for changing the atmosphere and bringing some positivity at a time when everything was negative. And then the players have done the rest.
We've seen over the last few seasons what teams have done once they get rid of a coach midseason and bringing someone else just to have that different voice, like you said, could go a long way. And look, now the conversations are about the playoffs. And when people were bringing that up amidst, the first 2 wins, people are like, all right, slow down. It's early here, but 7 straight wins, you make up 14 points just like that. And suddenly you're right there. How realistic are postseason expectations for this team right now?
Well, whenever anyone mentions playoffs, I still want to do the Jim Mora playoffs because it is still a very unlikely thing.
Yeah.
But 7 wins in a row, they've made it a lot more likely.
Yeah.
It's still a long shot. We all know the history of the NHL and the teams that are out, at the end of November, and especially the teams like the Canucks, who are at one point, I think they were 12 points back. Well, they've won 7 in a row, and they were still 4 points back. Bruce Boudreau said in a very upbeat, surprisingly, Christmas message to fans that 6-0 is okay, 10-0 is better. If they win 10 in a row, they might just have a playoff spot, but they certainly have played their way back into the conversation, but they still got a long way to go.
Is there 1 or 2 players in your eyes that have stood out the most under Bruce Boudreau so far that look drastically different than what they were doing under Travis Reed to start the season?
Well, what he seems to have done is unlocked the stars who were struggling, and the 2 who were struggling by far the most were Elias Pettersson and Brock Besser. Now, Brock Besser scored 5 goals in the first 6 games for Bruce Boudreau before going into COVID protocol. He didn't score a goal in the final 13 games for Travis Green. Elias Pettersson, his scoring numbers haven't been as dramatic, but Boudreau's giving him more ice time. Pettersson wanted to kill penalties. Boudreau's granted him that. And Pettersson just is playing like a star again, even if he's not getting the offensive numbers, but he's engaged. He's driving his line every night. Was killing penalties last night against Anaheim, had a big shot block on the penalty kill. So those 2 guys have been the most dramatically different. But also Thatcher Demko has been, as I said, he's been outstanding. He was good all along, though. Tyler Myers on defense has raised his game to another level. Quinn Hughes on defense, the way he's played since the change, and he also had a pretty good start to the season compared to others. But the way he's played since Boudreau took over, he looks like a Norris Trophy candidate. So it's just their top guys are now playing like kind of they were expected to play at the start of the year. And for whatever reason, as a group, It didn't happen until December. But now that they're playing that well and the Canucks special teams are better and they're getting this goaltending, we see the kind of success they're capable of.
And listen, we know how fun those players can be when all their potential is untapped. And so from a neutral perspective, I appreciate Bruce Boudreau for allowing that to come to fruition. It's been a good start under his tenure for the Canucks. They'll try to continue it into 2022 as well. Iain, thank you for your time.
Well, thanks for having me on, Faizal. And we all need a little fun these days, do we not?
Yes. Yes.